Let's talk about promises in JavaScript. Promise is a JavaScript object. Let me define new promise variable. Let's call it as a promise1. We'll use new keyword and call promise constructor. Promise constructor takes one argument, which is the executor function. Executor function takes two callbacks, resolve and reject. Resolve callback will be called if the promise is completed or resolved, and reject callback will be called if there is an error while executing executor functions logic. So let's define a executor function with resolve and reject callback. I will define one more variable with hardcode value as 5, and I will just check if its value is 5. Then resolve promise with past message, else reject with failed message. Let's save the program and run it. Nothing happens, right? Because we have resolved the promise, but we have not defined what should happen once the promise is resolved or rejected. So that is achieved through the then method, which is on the prototype of promise. So let's call it then implementation. Then method takes two callbacks, on success callback and on failure callback. On success callback will be called if the promise is resolved, and on failure callback will be called once the promise is rejected. So let's define on success callback. We'll pass the message argument, and second one is a on failure callback. Second argument, second callback is optional. It's not a compulsory. It's arrow function. It will take message. We can handle a failure condition by using a catch method, and catch method will accept the failure callback the same, but in this case we will use then. So we have handled success callback as well as the failure callback. So we will just console it out the message in both the callbacks. Let's execute the program again. Yeah, past is printed because promise is resolved with the past value, and that value will be passed to the success callback of the then method, and it will just consolidate out the past message. If I change the condition, let's say to 4, so promise will be rejected and it will call the failure callback. So let's execute the program. Yeah, failed will be printed on the console. uh, then method returns a promise, so we can form a promise chain using a then method. So let's define another then method with only success callback. As I said, failure callback is optional. I will define another then method with success callback. Let's run the program. Nothing happens, only failed will be printed for this uh, failure callback. There is no implementation in the consecutive then. So we'll pass the argument as message 2, and here message 3. Let's console out the message 2 and message 3. Let's run the program again. failed, undefined, undefined. As I said, the promises can be chained because then method returns the promise. So in this case, promise 1 is resolved with the failed value. So second callback, which is a failure callback, is called for the uh, promise, which console out the failed message. This second callback again returns a promise, but with undefined value, and that promise is passed to the this callback of then, and it prints the undefined value. Then this then again returns the promise with undefined value because we are not explicitly returning any value. Hence, promise is returned with the undefined value, and that undefined value is passed to this callback, and it is printing out undefined. So what happens if I write a return statement here? I'm returning message itself. Let's see what happens here. I will execute the program. Failed, failed, undefined, because this callback or then method is returning a promise with this message. This, what is this message? Failed, and that value will be passed to the second then. So this will print that failed value, but this then is not returning any value. Hence, promise will be returned with undefined value, and that promise value will be passed to this then, and this will print undefined again. If this then second then returns message 2, now in this case this then will return a promise with value message 2, which is failed again, and that message 2 will be passed to last then, third then, and it will print message as failed. Let's execute the program again. Yeah, 3 times failed. So this is a promise chaining, which is achieved through calling consecutive then methods.